Let's back up to the beginning. Animal rights activists break into a nightmare science facility where chimpanzees are kept in tiny cages, dissected on cold metal tables, and exposed to visuals of human-on-human violence. The activists prepare to free the chimps when they're found out by scientists returning from a coffee break. In another, less interesting movie, we might expect the activists to bash in the scientist's skull, say, to let us reflect on human nature for a moment before kickstarting the chimp rage-fueled zombie apocalypse. Instead, this happens.
Your mouth shut and don't move a fucking muscle.
The chimps are infected!
Infected with what?
In order to cure, you must first understand.
Infected with what?
Rage.
The activists ignore Dr. Coffee and release the chimps anyway. She gets bitten, she turns. Presumably everybody in this room becomes a bloodthirsty zombie and the seeds of the human race's destruction are sown. It's not totally clear whether the scientists created the virus or if they just happened upon it and tried to contain it, but the fact that we see a chimp being exposed to human violence, that is, physical manifestations of human rage, serves as fairly convincing evidence that the rage virus is of our own making. That this is a movie at least partly about our self-destruction. The chimp is being exposed to telecommunicated violence. Which is how we experience most violence in the modern world if we're not being directly exposed to and endangered by it. The central thesis of the movie is then, rage is infectious. Rage causes senseless, unjustifiable violence. Violence is self-destructive, so by spreading rage, we sow the seeds of our own destruction. This is where the messaging of the movie begins, and if I'm being honest, this isn't the strongest way to support later, more nuanced messages. And it isn't really that strong of an argument on its own. Is it fair to say that being exposed to telecommunicated violence breeds rage? I mean, on the contrary, isn't it far more likely to breed apathy? There is some truth between the lines of the film's thesis as it is. Being exposed to violence on TV, and nowadays on social media, can cause issues that needn't be divisive to feel necessarily divisive. It's easy to look at a group of people being violent, not understand why, and cast aspersions on everybody who looks like them. It's also easy to justify violence happening to groups of people at a distance. In this way, your TV or computer monitor acts as an extreme filter to the events of the world. But however it makes you feel, you aren't being told the truth. At least, you aren't being told the whole truth. So, if misunderstanding the world through the filter of mass media lends to rage, and if rage is going to destroy us, why does this lead to this? The answer is, simply put, not all violence is equal. To point out how this is pivotal to our analysis, let's edit the thesis of the film to fit the events of the climax and the ending. Rage is infectious. Rage can cause senseless, unjustifiable violence. Violence is self-destructive if done for the wrong reasons. Some rage is okay because some violence is justifiable. The outlook is hopeful if we keep evil forces in check. So, this is what I meant when I said more nuanced messaging from the end of the film isn't all that well supported by the rage is bad message delivered in the first 5 minutes. This part of the movie wants to put a blanket over violence and rage and say it's all bad, it needs to be cured, and we're killing ourselves. This part of the movie peeks under the blanket and points out that when bad people want to do bad things to you and people you care about, you have every right to defend yourself. In fact, that's a good thing.
They're dead. And you're gonna be next.
Even if you are full of rage, you aren't necessarily wrong. You can still be representative of aspects of humanity that are worth preserving.
That was longer than a heartbeat.
Jim?
So, what is worth preserving? And what makes a person bad or worth committing violence toward? To figure this out, we need to understand the relationship between the core characters. And to do that, We have to run through the plot up to the third act, so buckle up and I'll make this quick. 28 days after the breakout, Jim wakes up in a deserted hospital in London. He was in an accident and fell into a coma some indeterminate amount of time before disaster struck. As such, he hasn't had time to adapt to the dangers of the outside world and will probably be needing help very soon if he wants to live. Enter Mark and Selena, two savvy survivors who light infected people on fire to help Jim escape. They also blow up a gas station in spectacular fashion. Selena and Mark agree to help Jim find his parents, who turn out to be dead. They leave him this soul-crushing message that I admit makes me tear up every time I watch this movie. Infected people break in the middle of the night. It's a struggle, Mark gets bitten. Even though Selena and Mark seem to be good friends, she hacks at him repeatedly with a machete until he dies. Jim is terrified. If it wasn't obvious enough at this point, Selena admits to Jim she has a selfish and pessimistic reason for living. Jim recognizes that he needs her help anyway. The duo find a father, Frank, and daughter, Hannah, by way of Christmas lights. Hank reveals his plan to find a military camp that promises the answer to infection. Hank admits to Selena,
"Me and Hannah do need you more than you need us."
Hannah sees it differently.
And anyway, it isn't true what Dad said. You need us just the same as we need you.
It will be clear soon enough why she thinks this, but for now it's just an endearing moment. Okay, so the gang takes off on an adventure.
It's really fucking obviously a shit idea. Hold on!
They change the tire together and narrowly escape some infected people. They find an untouched grocery store and get to feel like human beings for a little while.
Hello?
Jim kills an infected child. Is he losing his humanity? Is he too becoming full of rage and senselessly violent?
No, let's get out of here.
Okay, we're done here.
These horses are just fine without them.
Aziz!
Selena realizes there is more to life than just surviving. She realizes community is worth protecting. She also kisses Jim on the cheek, which feels slightly like a forced romantic moment, but that's not a big deal. Oh, and speaking of forced romantic moments, infected are still running around, guys. Guys, he's covered in several people's blood. Normally, I'd say that's just unhygienic, but...
Hannah, it's okay. He's not infected.
But I thought he was biting you.
Anyway, Dad turns when the crew reaches the outpost, and the soldiers are forced to shoot him. Okay, let's put the plot on pause for a moment and think. When Selena is exposed to the better side of humanity, she becomes optimistic. When she finds her place in a community, she has a reason for hope. And remember what Hannah said earlier?
We need each other.
She wasn't wrong. Her relationship with her father is a system of trust, respect, devotion, and care that they both work to maintain. It's obviously worth having. It's not just the utility of somebody having your back. It's also the safety and comfort and even a little desire for responsibility that makes this sort of relationship worth having.
You're having a bad dream, that's all.
Thanks, Dad.
Being around this relationship is just as infectious as the rage virus. But instead of turning you into a monster, it turns you into a more caring person, and it makes you feel better. Community is worth preserving, if that community is built on trust, respect, devotion, and care.
It's getting late. Think we better stay here for the night.
I brought you drinks, I brought you flowers, I read your books and talked for hours. Every day so many drinks, such pretty flowers. So tell me, what have I done to deserve this? What have I